everyone, welcome to the second instalment of the Ask Gino competition. Your chance to win a Drift Ghost S HD video camera. I picked 4 questions from the Monday before Donington Park, and I'm now going to read the questions out and answer them for you. First question from Twitter, the username is LDAlessio1, and that's Luca de Alessio. Question is, hashtag Ask Gino, have you got any pre-race rituals or superstitions? No, not really. Not like a lot of riders do. I don't believe in the superstition aspect of it, really. I just try to do the same kind of routine every time, and the main thing that I like to do is make sure I've got enough time to stretch and, you know, prepare all my riding gear in time for the sessions. And I don't like to leave it too last minute, but I do end up in a rush sometimes, and that happens more than I like to. But yeah, the main ritual really for me is to do the same stretches that I do before every session. As far as superstitions, a lot of riders, you know, like to put the left boot on before the right, or certain, you know, glove before the other one, but I don't really have any superstitions as such. Just try to keep the routine the same and make sure I'm fully prepared. Next question is from Carl Weston. That's on Twitter, that's at CarlWeston7. Hashtag Ask Gino. If you could have a speedway race with you and 3 other bike races, alive or dead, who would it be? That's a very interesting question. Since you said alive or dead, I'd probably pick some riders from the past, and I'd say I'd go with Barry Sheen. I would go with Marco Simoncelli, and probably the legend that he is, Valentino Rossi. That would probably be my choice of 3 riders. I'm sure that would create a pretty interesting race. Good question. Next question, Twitter again, at Choc Rolo, and that's Mrs. G. So there's no name there, but I'm sure you know who you are. At Gino, hashtag Ask Gino. Are you ever mistaken for a relative of Jonathan Ray? This one gets asked a lot, actually, all around the world, at all the different races. You know, I've been asked this a fair few times in the past. You know, some people just assume we're relatives because of the name, and you know, we're both bike racers, and you know, you don't get that very often, especially with a name like Ria. But yeah, obviously I'm not a relative, but I get asked a lot, and there's always some sort of confusion. There has been in the past, especially back in 2010-11, with the commentators, the way they pronounce Ria, because in Europe, a lot of, especially in Italy, they pronounce it Ria, or they pronounce it Rea. So Johnny used to get called Ria, and in some places I'd get called Ray. So I think that's pretty cleared up now, because you know, Johnny's made such a good name for himself, so they know how to say his name, and they also know how to say mine. So yeah, a lot of people ask, and like I said, a lot of people get a bit confused, but yeah, it's a good question. The last, final, 4th question, Twitter again, username at Milne_46, and the name is The Biker. So again, no real name, but I'm sure you know who you are. Hashtag Ask Gino. What has been the highlight of your career so far, and the lowest point? What would you do if not racing? That's 2 questions there. Actually 3, because highest and lowest. But highest point, I would say, is probably the Moto2 podium. Should have really been a race win. If you would have watched it, you'll know, in Sepang, the wet race. You know, it's not often you can say you've been on the MotoGP podium. Finished 2nd in that race. Well, I was given 2nd. It would have been nice to, you know, have your name etched in there as a Moto2 Grand Prix winner, but unfortunately they red flagged it and it went back 2 laps. So anyway, I was granted 2nd, but that's probably one of the highest, along with winning the European Superstock Championship, and you know, probably my first win in Supersport. They're probably the highest. I'd say lowest, you know, there's always lows throughout a lot of seasons, throughout most seasons. You know, one race here and there, but I think I'd rather pinpoint it on, you know, the general average results in Moto2. I'd say, you know, it was a frustrating couple of years. and I never really got to show what I believe I was capable of, and what people around me believe we were capable of. So that was, for me, is probably one of the lowest, because it's a frustrating time, and it's like you're just constantly banging your head against the wall, and you don't get that break that you need. So lowest I'd say is not being able to replicate the podium potential throughout the season in Moto 2. Yeah, that was probably the lowest, I'd say. And the second part of that question, what would you do if not racing? It's hard to say now, because I've raced all my life, and I've raced in a European Championship since I was 15, 16. So if I was to stop now, I would do something within the racing, within the paddock. Well, not necessarily the paddock, but within the racing industry. Apart from that, when I was young, I always wanted to be a stuntman, believe it or not. The stunt industry is always something I've been interested in, especially because one of my sponsors and good friends, Gary Powell, he's one of the biggest stunt coordinators in the industry, so I've always been interested to get into that. But yeah, never really had the chance, obviously, because of the racing. So if I was never racing from a younger age, that would be something that I'd be interested in. So that's 4 questions picked. Hopefully you all continue to send in your questions next Monday. This is the Monday before Portimao round. We'll be looking forward to your questions, and a big thank you for all the support and the amount of questions that come in.